Chelsea have labelled superstar striker João Pedro untouchable. No, Barcelona, you can't have him. Enzo Maresca and Man City have apparently called off on the idea of trying to sign Enzo Fernandez and are supposedly focusing their attentions on Elliot Anderson. More goalkeeping drama because we're Chelsea and that's just what we do. Philip Jorgensen wants to leave and supposedly Mike Penders is coming back to challenge Robert Sanchez for the number 1 spot. Cole Palmer supposedly would be open to a reunion with former club Man City, and Kieran Gill pours cold water on us going in for either of Newcastle's midfielders, Bruno G or Sandro Tonali. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today, we're talking about transfer news, no links about people coming in, but some people potentially going out and some people that are potentially not going anywhere. So let's not mess around and just get straight into it. Fabrizio Romano posted this today. Understand Chelsea have been very clear with Barcelona. No intention at all to negotiate, discuss or talk about João Pedro. Wow, that's difficult to say, isn't it? CFC see João as a key part of the project. It's not about bid/value. No intention to sell at all. Chelsea consider João untouchable. And that just completely makes sense, doesn't it? Now, what this is probably driven by is Xabi Alonso, I would have thought. Also, the market, not exactly inundated with amazing opportunities at the moment. Like last season was a striker, the last window was a striker window. Strikers are flying around all over the place. This season, not so much. There's a couple of guys like Igor Thiago from Brentford looks really interesting. Julian Alvarez at Atletico Madrid, everyone wants him. But when you've got the guy who gets 20 plus GA in all competitions, keep him. It just makes sense, doesn't it? And I imagine Xabi Alonso has probably come in and said, I like this guy. I really want to keep him. Now, it's interesting because, you know, the obvious comparisons that I myself and a lot of other creators make is to the kind of players he had at Bayer Leverkusen. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the only thing he goes for, but if you look at Victor Boniface, who was a striker at Leverkusen, very different kind of striker, a lot less like playmakery than João Pedro is. But you got to have thought, like, João Pedro has absolutely smashed it in the last season when you think about how bad we've been as well. He did bookend the season. He did come in and absolutely kill it at the Club World Cup, and we were like, wow, this guy. Then he kind of went missing for a little while. I have a feeling that had something to do with the way that Enzo Maresca was asking him to play, because when Liam Rosenior came in, who obviously wasn't as good as Enzo Maresca, João Pedro all of a sudden starts scoring again because he was being pushed higher up, right? So the great thing about João Pedro is he's got all of this 9.5 playmaker sort of whatever going on. Like he can assist, he can drop deep, he can link up, but he gets good striker goals as well. Like he can head, he can bicycle kick, he can, do you know what I mean? Like a poacher's finish, alongside long range goals. He's really got everything in his locker. And with João Pedro, it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's just getting him to do more of it. And with Xabi Alonso coming in, surely you would have thought the first thing he would have said is, don't let this guy go anywhere. And according to Fabrizio Romano, he's not. So guys, tell me what you think about João Pedro supposedly being untouchable. Do you think that if Barcelona came in with a crazy bid, like, you know, breaking the British record transfer fee, which was currently Alexander Isak for 125 mil, for me, it's not even worth it because you would have to reinvest so much of it into a striker that might not acclimatise to the Premier League or acclimatise to the team. And it's just such a risk and such a gamble. Strikers are gold dust. Strikers that can score 15 goals in the Premier League in a season that you finished 10th. Gold dust. So let me know what you think about keeping João Pedro in the comments. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking, sharing and hyping the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so we're going to move on and we're going to talk about Enzo Fernandez, the ongoing drama, the saga that is Enzo Fernandez. Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Jack Gorhan. We'll say Jack Gorhan. Man City sources maintain they are not looking to pursue a deal for Enzo Fernandez despite his close relationship with Enzo Maresca. And I'm not surprised. And the reason I'm not surprised, it's not because of the close relationship with Enzo Maresca, or it's just the Man City situation. I think that the Man City situation in itself, I've mentioned this in a video recently, it's a little bit wild because it's like there's been links with Elliot Anderson and there's links with Cole Palmer, as we're going to get into later, and there's been links with Enzo Fernandez. And it's like, mate, Pep Guardiola's just left for a start, and you've still got the 115 hanging over your head. Like, based on what happened to Everton and Nottingham Forest, they're going to get a points deduction. And if they don't, right, if Man City don't get a points deduction and prove that the Premier League it was wrong, then it's open season for any club with financial backing to not have to spend inside the parameters that have been set. That means Newcastle can start to go crazy. That means we can start to go crazy without having to worry about all of the... That means Everton and Nottingham Forest can go absolutely mental because, you know what I mean? They kind of already did. So it's a really strange situation, and I don't see Man City being able to go in for any really, really expensive players. I'm not saying they're going to get dropped down into the Championship or whatever, but if they get slapped with like a 20, maybe 30 point deduction, and that's on the light side of what I've seen as well, by the way, that's me being generous, they're not going to be a Champions League club next season, even if they win enough games, because the points deduction will just hamper their opportunities. So Enzo Maresca, to me, looks like he's been brought in as a transitional manager in a time that they're expecting things to go wrong. You don't bring in Enzo Maresca after Pep Guardiola, do you? It's just absolutely wild. So, I won't rant about it too much more, but the Enzo Fernandez thing in particular, did they have a really close relationship? Like, I don't even really know. I don't necessarily remember that being the case. I remember Enzo Fernandez being just about as abject as everyone else when we were going through all of those horrible games and we were losing all the time. So, and it's the same with the Cole Palmer stuff, which I'm going to get onto later. Like, I don't always just buy that this manager managed this player once, so they're best friends and really want to work together again. It really doesn't very often work out like that, to be completely honest. It was the same with Maurizio Sarri and Jorginho. Jorginho came in under Maurizio Sarri and didn't end up playing anywhere near the same role long term as what he ended up playing, and didn't just set the team alight because they'd worked together before. It's a lot more complicated than that. So I'm not surprised Man City aren't pushing for Enzo Fernandez, because I'm not surprised that, apart from Elliot Anderson, who could be a 100 mil player, like, fair enough, but I'm not surprised they're not really pushing for anyone in that respect, because at the end of the day, you would have thought that the 115 is going to come tumbling down on their heads going into next season. So that realistically, if they buy big players right now, there's a danger, right? And I do expect also, because for instance, we're not hearing much about the players that I expect to leave yet. Obviously, Bernardo Silva's already going. He'd already announced that. Rodri looks like he might be going to Real Madrid. Jose Mourinho really likes him. I don't expect Erling Haaland to stick around for Enzo Maresca. Wild. Anyway, that's tell me what you think about this, guys. Like, in terms of, am I happy to keep Enzo Fernandez? I've mentioned it a million times before. I am indifferent at the end of the day. I had a really interesting with my friend Kai last night on a video I released this morning, by the way. So go and check that one out after this if you haven't already. We had a long chat about who stays and who goes. But the thing with Enzo Fernandez is what we all look at is the numbers, right? But when you think about a deep-lying midfielder, it's absolutely amazing for a deep-lying midfielder to get those numbers. Do we want a deep-lying midfielder to not be doing as much of the deep-lying midfielder stuff so he can get those numbers? Or do we want to kind of push those numbers into our actual attacking players? So Enzo Fernandez is an amazing player, and if we keep him, that's probably a good thing. But if we lose him, I imagine we don't get someone like Enzo Fernandez to replace him. I imagine we get someone who is more of a deep-lying midfielder, like Xabi Alonso, for instance, had Granit Xhaka, who was a deep-lying distributor. In a season where everyone was scoring goals for fun, Granit Xhaka only got 4 goals and 2 assists in that whole season because it just wasn't his job. So, really interested in this permutation about the Enzo Fernandez situation in general. Personally, like I say, PSG or Real Madrid, if they come in with a big bid, yeah, I think he'll go. Of course he will. I don't think that, they'll hold back if the right money comes in. But also, if we keep him, there's definitely ways to use him. I just don't think it's the same way he was used by Enzo Maresca. So, moving on, we're going to talk about goalkeepers. I've spent so much time over the last season talking about goalkeepers. We're going to start with this tweet from Chelsea Dodgers via Bobby Vincent. Chelsea are set to integrate Mike Penders into the first team squad next season. Philip Jorgensen wants to leave. So we're going to get more onto the Philip Jorgensen stuff in a minute, but we're just going to talk about Mike Penders for now. My whole thing up until now has been, I'm not sure. It's a little bit scary. I saw something on Twitter earlier that was a really good point. In a season with no Europe, that's a little bit dangerous, because it's like, if he doesn't dislodge Sanchez as the number one keeper, he's going to get no game time and we'll lose him, because it will be Jordi Petrovic all over again. And I would love to have kept Jordi. Most Chelsea fans wanted to keep Jordi Petrovic instead of Sanchez, but Petrovic went to Bournemouth and Sanchez is still here and doing Sanchez-y things. So it seems like, as well, like a couple of other bits of news seem to be intimating at the moment that the setup next season is going to be Penders versus Robert Sanchez. Now, It's a lot of pressure to put on Penders at 21 years old, to come into the Premier League and try and get us from 10th to 4th, at least. That's the goal next season, is it? Champions League football is an absolute must. We've missed it we've only got it once in what will be the next 5 seasons, if we don't get it next season, and that is just 500 mil that you've lost instantly. So it's a huge amount of pressure, and it's also a huge amount of pressure to put on Robert Sanchez because he's just not good enough. He's just not good enough. But, it's just one of those. I would like to have gone in for a Mike Maignan and brought Penders back or something like that. I don't know. There's so many weird. There's problems with all of the permutations. That's completely the truth, right? There's no perfect solution that includes Mike Penders that doesn't risk him leaving, essentially. We bring him back. He doesn't get in over Rob Sanchez, and he doesn't get enough game time, and he wants to leave. He comes back and he is better than Rob Sanchez, but he's still not good enough. Then potentially we go out and look for another goalkeeper next summer anyway. The only permutation for me that means we don't risk losing him imminently is send him out on loan to a Premier League team. But at the same time, this seems to be the way that we're going, right? It's like what do we know about Penders? What we know about Penders is he's very good with his feet. I did a comparison video earlier in the season between Mike Maignan, Robert Sanchez, and Mike Penders. Mike Maignan essentially was the middle of the both. He was a reasonably good shot stopper and reasonably good with his feet. Robert Sanchez, bad with his feet, better shot stopper. Mike Penders, great with his feet, not so good at shot stopping. So I guess it just depends on how we're going to play, really. And the defence in front of the goalkeeper is also really important in that as well, isn't it? So, it's just going to have to be one of those. At the end of the day, if he comes in and he gets the opportunities, I'll back him because I desperately want it to work. I would love to have a 21-year-old goalkeeper that's with us for the next decade and just gets better and better and better and better. That's absolutely awesome. The only thing that worries me about it a little bit is this whole concept of the pressure the club is under to perform at the moment, and bringing Penders back to compete with Sanchez feels like a risk on a risk, which both of them could cost us points essentially, and I don't want to put that pressure on Mike Penders at the moment, and I don't think Rob Sanchez is good enough to stand up to it, especially with the style of football that it looks like we're going to play under Xabi Alonso. So guys, that's my little Penders rant. We're going to move on to Jorgensen in a minute, but before we do, I would love to know what you think. Do you think Penders is just going to come in and oust Robert Sanchez? Do you think that Robert Sanchez's shot-stopping ability, which, I've had some interesting conversations with guys in my comments recently. Robert Sanchez is a good shot-stopper. The issue with Robert Sanchez isn't the shot-stopping, it is the errors, right? The errors that he makes, and when he loses his head, that is when he's bad. He's kept us in games loads of times this season, and when he's just been asked to shot-stop, he's good. It's kind of like Joe Hart. Do you remember when Pep came in and instantly he was like, no, Joe Hart's gone? And Joe Hart was an excellent shot stopper but bad with the ball at his feet. They got Claudio Bravo, which didn't go well, and then obviously they got Edison, which, the rest of that is history with all of the titles and stuff that they won. So it's just one of those, isn't it? Like, the issue with Sanchez isn't the fact that he's not a good shot stopper. That's not why we're conceding goals because of Sanchez. The reason we're conceding goals because of Sanchez is because he gets anxious and he makes weird decisions, like runs out to meet an attacker that's got the ball and then questions himself halfway and then goes back and leaves all this space open to be scored around, or he does weird things for set pieces, like we've conceded a few set pieces because Rob Sanchez didn't really know what he's doing, or there wasn't good communication in and around the box, and he did, and it's just one of those, isn't it? Like, being a good shot stopper doesn't mean that you never concede silly goals. And that is kind of the issue for me with Sanchez, and I think the main reason he's been dropped time and time again. Anyway, let's move on. CFC Daily said bye to a response to a post from Nizar Kinsella about Philip Jorgensen. Chelsea goalkeeper Philip Jorgensen has asked to leave in a face-to-face meeting over a lack of game time. The Blues had previously rejected his desire to leave in January, but are open to his exit now. So this just makes all the sense. The big lesson that we need to learn here, and this is the thing I'm concerned about with Mike Penders as well, your number 2 goalkeeper can't be a young up-and-comer unless he's a really young up-and-comer. And that presents its own problems, because if he's a really young up-and-comer, then he might not have the experience or the technical ability to be a good goalkeeper when you need him to be in cup competitions and stuff. Philip Jorgensen maybe could have been a good goalkeeper. The problem Philip Jorgensen's had is he's played like 12, 13 games this season. Maybe it's a little bit more than that, but it's a really, really small amount, and it's been really, really sporadic too, right? And then his opportunity comes after basically not playing and not being able to improve with match minutes. And then all of a sudden you drop him in Aston Villa, he plays okay, wicked. Then you drop him in against PSG and he ships 8 goals in 2 games. So it's just, you can't have this young goalkeeper that's got potential that needs to improve, right? So this has been Philip Jorgensen's problem. Philip Jorgensen never really challenged for the number 1 spot, and the only opportunity he got to wasn't because of how good he was, it was because of how bad Sanchez was. So when Courtois came in to battle with Cech, Courtois at that time was better because Cech was getting to the end of his career. Courtois was on the up. He'd won a league title with Atletico Madrid and, had loads of experience, and he won the battle because he was better. Philip Jorgensen wasn't getting match time because he was better than Robert Sanchez. He was getting match time because Robert Sanchez was making loads of silly mistakes. So the issue, when you've got a young goalkeeper as your number 2, is they need game time to develop. They need to get the experience. They need to build up the mentality that they need to be a top-level goalkeeper, and we didn't give that to Philip Jorgensen. This is why you have a Mark Schwarzer, an Asmir Begovic, a Marcus Bettinelli, all Willy Caballero, like all of these guys, Hilario. Do you remember Hilario? Mate, this is why you have that guy. The guy that is just paid to train, but if he needs to, he can come in and still do a job because he's got a lot of experience, right? So Philip Jorgensen, we hardly knew ye. He needs to go because even if he could be a good goalkeeper, it's never going to happen here. Like, it's literally never going to happen here because he just doesn't get enough game time. And he did want to leave in January because there was still a chance that Denmark might have qualified for the World Cup, and he was worried about not being selected for that if he wasn't getting any game time. So look, at Philip Jorgensen's level, he's still young, 23, 24, not an old goalkeeper at all. He needs to go to a club and play football and be a goalkeeper. He's not getting that here. He's training, he's getting a few sparse match minutes when our current goalkeeper is out of form, which, any opportunity is a good opportunity, but he's never grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. Jordi Petrovic grabbed that opportunity in the Pochettino season by the scruff of the neck when Sanchez got dropped for being Sanchez, by the way. Jordi Petrovic came in and made himself irreplaceable for the rest of that season and became our first team goalkeeper. And you bet your bottom dollar that if Pochettino would have stayed on, we'd have kept Jordi Petrovic and he'd have carried on being our goalkeeper. So that's just how it works, isn't it? Like, Philip Jorgensen was never able to do that, and despite Sanchez's flaws and issues, he's still better than Philip Jorgensen. And every time Sanchez has been dropped for Jorgensen, Sanchez ends up coming back in, and Jorgensen has never been able to cement that situation as his own. We're not going to get a lot of money for him because he's not that good. He's got potential. Maybe we can squeeze a few quid out of his potential, but that's kind of just going to be what it is, man. That's kind of the end of that one. So guys, let me know what you think about all of the goalkeeper stuff, the Robert Sanchez stuff, the Mike Penders stuff, the Philip Jorgensen stuff. Should we go out and get another goalkeeper? Are you happy with Penders coming in to challenge Rob Sanchez for the number 1? Let me know what you think in the comments. Right, weird one. PYS. Now, before anything else, I think it's Pice, right? So that sounds even weird to say it, but he does podcasts with people, and that's how they refer to him. And a couple of you guys in the comments have mentioned that to me, so I'm going to try and make this change. And it's weird because it feels wrong in my mouth because I've been saying PYS for so long. But Pice posted this. TalkSport understands a return to Manchester City is a possibility for Palmer, but Chelsea have 0 plans to sell this summer. That is via a conversation between Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook. So, thank you, Pice. Oh, weird. I'll do it, though. If that's the right way to do it, I'll just do it. So, I just don't even understand why this is a thing. Like, Cole Palmer is a northern lad and will probably always relish the opportunity to play back up north one day. But he's on a dirty long contract. He's on a lot of money, and he's not going anywhere for the time being, is he? What I do think is if he doesn't kick on this season, I do think we'll look to sell him at the end of the season, because then it's like 4 seasons, isn't it? And he doesn't need to score 24 goals again like he did in his first season, but if he doesn't get back to being an obviously really important cog in the team, bringing up those assist numbers as well, which have been particularly low this season, then I do foresee that starting to be the end of the Cole Palmer era. But I've got a good feeling, man. I've got a good feeling that Xabi Alonso, he worked wonders with Florian Wirtz at Bayer Leverkusen, and I think we might see the same thing. So either way, though, again, I have the same reservations about it being City as I do with the Enzo Fernandez links, right? I'd be really surprised to see City splash a massive amount of money on a player before the charges drop. Because if the charges do drop, then the amount of money that they can earn is going to drop, because they're only going to be able to finish at a certain spot in the Premier League next season. Now, they'll still have the Champions League money, they've got their sponsorship money, and they'll probably make a few quid from selling a few players and stuff, but whoever commits to that project pre-charges, and then if the charges come and it's like 20-30 points deduction, then you can only finish in a certain spot and they're not going to be able to get into the Champions League for the next year, then that changes things, because players will always be player first, won't they, when they're negotiating. It's never like, oh, I'll do anything for Man City. It's like, no, I'm a player, I want my career to be good. So I'd be surprised to see any really big signings from City, just from the players' perspective, to be honest. I'd be surprised to see Elliot Anderson sign for 100 mil before he goes to the World Cup if the charges haven't dropped yet. I have a feeling that the charges are going to drop during the World Cup, by the way. But yeah, this one, it just is what it is, isn't it? Cole Palmer, he loves his chippy chips and he's a northern lad. But at the end of the day, he's not going anywhere for the time being. He needs to be, and also he's not been one of the ones coming out kind of agitating for a move away, and he's been one of our more professional players. Like, look at the Wesley Fofana thing in the FA Cup final, right? The FA Cup final, Man City win, they do their trophy celebration, and Wesley Fofana tries to drag a load of players away, and Cole Palmer comes and like, no, come on lads, let's go watch. But maybe that's because it was Man City and he's secretly harbouring a return to his home. So either way, also the Maresca thing, like, I don't think Cole Palmer loved Maresca as a manager. Like, if you think about as bad as Liam Rosenior was, after the first month or something, Cole Palmer come out and was like, yeah, we love playing for Liam Rosenior. He gives us freedom to express ourselves. That's the kind of player that Cole Palmer is, and I think he'll get that under Xabi Alonso, and he's clearly not going to get that under Enzo Maresca. And he wasn't really getting that under Pep either, because they're very structured managers that are like, go here, do this, when this thing happens, be here. But Pochettino, Liam Rosenior, who he liked despite being terrible, and Xabi Alonso with his attacking players, they allow them to be dynamically free. So you would have thought that Cole Palmer would at least want to see what happens this season. I think this one is silly to even talk about, to be honest. But Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook are talking about it, and they're two of the big guns. So let me know what you think in the comments. And guys, we're going to wrap up today's video with a tweet from Pice. I need to get that into my head. Chelsea sources are downplaying links today with Bruno G and Sandro Tonali. I love how we all just call him Bruno G. So the Bruno G links in particular were quite strong for the last couple of days, but it was like 70 mil and he's 30, nearly 30. Like, that is a massive departure from the Blue Co model, right? And don't get me wrong, like, would I like to see Bruno G in the Chelsea team? Yes, I would, because he's absolutely fantastic. And we love a Brazilian. We've got a large Brazilian contingent, so I think he'd fit in quite well. But at the same time, yeah, I get it, and I'm not devastated by it. The Sandro Tonali stuff, again, it seems like Arsenal really interested in. Those are the conversations that are being had at the moment. I'm not particularly devastated or disappointed by this, and the reason for that largely is because, albeit we could do with some upgrading to our midfield, especially if Enzo Fernandez leaves, we have other areas of concern that need addressing first, right? We need a left-sided attacker or someone that can challenge Cole Palmer for like a central attacking midfield spot. We need a right wing back if we're going to be playing at free at the back. Like, Malagusto is an option. I don't see Reece James really playing there. And we need centre backs. Like, that's the big one, isn't it? Like, the big one is we need one, if not two centre backs. For me, I still like Van Heck and Murillo. I'd love to know you guys what you're thinking, if there's any suggestions out there for centre-backs that you think would fit in Xabi Alonso's Chelsea team. Supposedly, he's actually been linked with one of the players that he had at Leverkusen. I can't remember the guy's name. But yeah, so, I don't think midfield is, although news has come out saying Xabi Alonso would like a new midfielder, that's interesting in itself, and maybe that means that he also doesn't see Enzo Fernandez as a deep-lying midfielder. I think Reece James is probably going to play there a little bit more. We've got lots of depth, but they're all very injury prone. Well, two of them are, and not super high quality. So yeah, I just don't think midfield is necessarily the first place we need to be going to upgrade the team. I think that we need to be looking at centre backs, and that's what I'm excited to see. That's when I'll really start to think, okay, this is where Xabi Alonso's input is coming from. These are the kind of players that he wants, and he's not just going to be like Tosin Adarabioyo. Yeah, I'll give him a crack. Benoit Badiashile, why not? Wesley Fofana, sure. These guys need to go. And what is interesting, we're not seeing any links away with for these guys yet either. I'm hoping that heats up before the World Cup, to be honest. But anyway, no Tonali, no Bruno G. not particularly bothered. I think both of them would have been excellent additions, don't get me wrong. I think Sandro Tonali, as a deep-lying distributor, Xabi Alonso would absolutely love someone like that, of course, but it looks like Arsenal are going to go for it, and they've just won the league, so it kind of makes sense. So, guys, that is it for today's video. Let me know what you think about everything. João Pedro is a Chelsea boy at least for another season. Cold water has been poured on the Enzo Fernandez to Man City links, and I'm not particularly surprised for the reasons that I went on about. The goalkeeper situation is still up in the air. Mike Penders, Robert Sanchez, Philip Jorgensen on his way out, still links to Robin Roos, still links to Mike Maignan. What is going to happen with the goalkeeping situation? Cole Palmer to City, apparently it's a possibility for him. What does that even mean? He likes the chips. The chips are better up north. I'll give you that 100%. My family, despite my not very northern accent, all of my family are from the north. I was raised on chippy chips. They're banging, man. They are banging. But obviously there's more to it than chippy chips, I'm sure. But either way, I expect him to be a Chelsea player for the next season. And neither of Newcastle's dynamic midfield duo will probably be making the trip down to London. So, guys, like I say, let me know what you think about all of that. And I'm going to wrap the video up there. I hope you guys have an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.